Hello and welcome to Adoption Pop. We're a podcast journalist,
a filmmaker,
and a cultural critic burst pop culture's favorite adoption tropes.
Because we're adopted.
Hey, Kristal, did you read comic strips as a kid? Like, were comic strips a thing still when you were a kid?
Well, I don't know if I necessarily read comic strips, but the Sunday funnies, is that the equivalent?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because my dad loved the Sunday funnies, and he'd sit there and read them with me and stuff. So yes, I did. But I don't. Was there an Annie one?
Oh, was there an Annie comic strip? Yes.
Oh, I had no idea.
Comic strip, that Little Orphan Annie comic strip is the inspiration for today's film. And so whether or not you were into comic strips as a kid, we think you're gonna like it here on today's episode. We're just thinking about 10-year-old Aileen Quinn in the role that would make her a star in the film that became the blueprint for a better life. It was not well received by critics upon its release. It has just a 50% Rotten Tomatoes score, proving, if nothing else, that no one cares for you a smidge when you're in an orphanage. Hey, Haley, how was the 1982 Annie rewatch for you?
You know, I feel like the last time I watched this was when I was a kid. I have a vivid memory of watching it in someone's basement. The Dreger family, they owned the Big Deal Bulletin. I don't remember ever being there at any other point, but I remember watching Annie. And when I watched it this time, I did not remember anything except for a couple of songs. I didn't remember the locket. I didn't remember the overly sexualized Carol Burnett. I was like, oh my God, is this why I never liked Carol Burnett? Is this why? Maybe. Kristal, how about you?
Carol Burnett was my favorite character in that.
Not surprised.
Oh my gosh, just her playing drunk was so good for me. And yeah, I mean, she's walking around in lingerie all the time. That was kind of funny. But this time around for me, so I can sing along with every song. There was a few things that I had forgotten as well. But the thing that struck me as the most interesting was I was watching it, I'm like, why did I love this show so much? I really wanted to get into my psyche about what it was. And there were two moments, and I can share them later, but I just was like, what was it that connected me so much to this film? And maybe it was that Carol Burnett was also an alcoholic. It's funny, guys, laugh.
I'm just remembering how I do not know how many times I've seen this film. I saw it. A friend of mine had it on VHS. I think taped from television, as you did at the time. And so I don't recall how many. I've seen it too many times to count. And I remember thinking Carol Burnett was old, right? Old, decrepit, bleh. And on the rewatch. At 48 on the rewatch, she looks pretty damn good. She's I think she's 40, maybe 40 in this film. Turns out she's not so old.
I think she was 49, because I Googled, right, how old she was when she filmed it. She was 49 or 48, did you say?
I didn't even think she was that old.
Yeah.
We can figure it out. Haley, get on it while we're talking. But the point is, at this age, Carol Burnett doesn't look so old in Annie. I love the music. The early songs in this film are bangers. Hard Knock Life, a banger. Long before Jay-Z. That's why Jay-Z remade it, because it was already a banger when Jay-Z remade it. And so, loved the music, loved the choreography for sure. Haley, do we have an age on Carol Burnett?
Carol was 48 when she filmed it and 49 when it was released.
I at one point said, why am I finding Daddy Warbucks kind of sexy right now? Because he was an old man as well when I watched it.
Because he's age appropriate now.
Yeah, exactly.
But so speaking of the music, this film opens with a song. It opens with the song Maybe, which to me is like one of the best songs in all of musical filmmaking.
It's a song about longing, right? It's longing. And so that was definitely one of the 1 out of 2 moments in the film that I was like, oh yeah, that's why I connected, was like I can actually remember being a little girl and like reenacting that in my room, like looking out the window, singing the song and feeling like, I wonder who they are. I wonder who I wonder if they think of me, you know?
And when are they coming to get me? This song was made for adopted people, 100%. Like, talk about thinking of the ghost kingdom and are they like this or that? And totally. And I remembered the song as I was listening to it, but I don't remember thinking of this song at any point in the last, decade. I absolutely the other classic, yes, but not this one. But I was like, oh, it's made for me.
It's about the first parents, but it's also about who will adopt them and dreaming about both and what each one is like and what each one might be like. And I thought that was kind of brilliant and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, because the orphanage is a bad place, right? It's a hard knock life. They're made to do a bunch of work, which we know from either prior episodes of this podcast that happened in orphanages, that kids were made to work and they really were not treated well at all. And so it's no wonder that the kids were dreaming of getting out, for sure.
But they also looked like they were having so much fun. Like the camaraderie.
So I don't get that.
I know. I kept thinking that. I was like, why is even the dog catcher was filthy. But then Stuart said, well, it's because it was like the Great Depression. So they were showing that it was like, really hard times.
Still, I mean, every day you got to scrub top to bottom.
Till the floor shines like the top of the Chrysler Building.
Oh, I thought you meant why were the people so dirty? Why were the kids so filthy?
Well, I guess that's what made the house filthy, or the orphanage
yeah, maybe
filthy.
That. Yeah.
I don't know.
So Annie does get a chance at escape when a beautiful woman named Miss Farrell shows up to the orphanage because she wants to pick out an orphan for a rich man named Daddy Warbucks, Oliver Warbucks, because he wants an orphan for his image. This movie is from 1982, based on the Broadway show from 1977, and it's nice to know that some things never change.
Right.
You know what? I really wanted to go in that mansion and have people take care of me, actually. And do I want to have a bath in that big tub? Yes. Annie's also adoptive mother herself. She finds a dog to adopt and brings him along.
Yeah, I think that was the appeal for me too as a child, was just like going to this big mansion and having everything you could possibly need or want, but more so being taken care of, like every single need being met and anticipated. And yeah, even as an adult, I was like, wow, that'd be real nice.
I think it was also the wardrobe. Like, yes, can you make some custom dresses for me, please? So they're all enjoying themselves, and then Daddy Warbucks, he's not Daddy Warbucks yet at this point, but Mr. Warbucks comes home and like he punches out the photographer that's literally there for his press moment to show this amazing act of generosity, opening his home to an orphan. I was like, this guy is a total asshole. No wonder he needs some PR.
He like had forgotten that she was even coming, or that there was a orphan that was even coming, that he had even agreed to this. And then he's like, I don't want a girl. I want a boy. I want a boy. Send her back and get me a boy. And then in his distraction, because he's, got to go make money, he agrees to keep Annie and the dog.
So I'm trying to figure out when the right time in this discussion is to play what I think should be a new game, a new feature of this podcast called Who in the Film is an Adoptive Parent?
You mean the actors?
I mean the people most strongly affiliated with the film. They could be actors, they could be behind the lens, but I'm not talking about, the craft services person. No disrespect to craft services because they're necessary. But I'm talking someone that has some power to shape the narrative in some way, shape, or form, or shape how we receive the story in some way, shape, or form. So we do have one of those people in this film. And so I would just ask either of you, do you have a guess as to who in this film is the adoptive parent?
In front of the camera or behind the camera?
This is a behind the camera.
The director?
The film's director, John Huston, is an adoptive parent.
I win.
You win. Could I read you something?
Of course.
Okay. Give me just a second while I flip screens so I can read you something.
I'm bracing. I'm bracing for it. I'm also curious if you know, which is a totally unfair question, but except for I know you've read 20 books to prepare for this. Do you know about the author of the original comic strip? If there was any connection to adoption or not?
So I don't know about the author of the original comic strip. I can tell you the original comic strip was the person who wrote it was very, he was a Republican. And so a lot of the strip really went towards this idea of individuality, and, sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Like Annie is one of those people. And when the decision was made to adapt the comic strip for Broadway, they engaged a man named Thomas Meehan to write the book. Essentially, he wrote a novel, which I do want to talk about because I did read the Annie novel in preparation for this. He wrote the novel, and he also wrote the Broadway book, like that would become the speaking parts of that. And in that adaptation, these songwriters are Democrats. And so there is very consciously some adaptation to sort of flip the script, if you will, to something that is more left-leaning, more liberal. Not something I think any of us ever would have noticed as kids, but it's why you have Roosevelt in the movie. He's the New Deal against Daddy Warbucks, who has all this money. That's like your Republican. And so there was an underlying political bent to this film that, again, I don't think kids pick up on that kind of thing, but it was very much part of it. And it plays really big in the book. as well, that Republican Democrat. And it is part of Oliver Warbuck's arc in the book and in the movie, right? Because at the end, like, Andy has melted his heart, and he, like, it looks a little bit like he's giving away money. In the book, he's 1,000%. He's giving away tons and tons of money. He in fact gets all of his rich friends to adopt all of the orphans. In the book, he gives money away to the poor. In the book, like, there's a lot of that. But okay, let me read you a brief excerpt. This is 2 paragraphs I'm going to read you. This is from John Huston's memoir, published in 1980. This is, well, he was filming a movie called The Treasure of the Sierra Madre at the time. So he's in Mexico directing this film. Among the Mexican boys who ran beer and cold drinks to the company was a smiling little kid named Pablo. He was always on hand, willing and eager to do anything asked of him. One night there was a tropical downpour, and as I was going into the hotel, I noticed a face looking out at me from underneath a truck. It was Pablo. I called him over, took him into the hotel, and put him on my sofa in my room. We had breakfast together the next morning, and from that time on, there was no shaking him. I discovered that he was a homeless orphan. So when it came time to leave Mexico, there was nothing to do but adopt him and bring him back with me. When we arrived in Los Angeles, Evelyn, his wife, met me at the airport, and I introduced her to our new son. Her immediate reaction was shock. She put on a good face, however, and tried thenceforth to be a good mother. Pablo was educated in the United States and eventually married a lovely Irish girl who bore him 3 children. Then his life turned sour. He deserted his family, returned to Mexico City, and became a used car dealer. Perhaps I should have left him in Huncapeo. So you both look shocked. And not to pile on, but would you care to hear Evelyn's reaction
my God.
to this?
Why not?
This fucking guy. Yeah, let's hear from the wife.
Okay. This is from Evelyn's memoir, which was published in 1977. Okay, I'm going to read you one very short excerpt and pause, and then I'm going to read you a second excerpt, because you really kind of need both. Oh, and by the way, the name of this book is Scarlett O'Hara's Little Sister. Evelyn was an actress, and she played the sister of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, which, in case it doesn't spark for listeners, was a wild fucking racist movie and book. And this is a woman now who played a wildly racist character, and now many years later has named her memoir after the wildly racist character. And in fact, there's wild racism in this memoir. I won't subject you to it. But in 1977, she's still holding on to the fact that she says in 1977 that all of the black people in Gone with the Wind were slaves, so they were kept in their place. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to say it, but I said it. Okay, but we're not talking about that. We're going to talk about Pablo. Okay. There was much to do to get Pablo, our little primitive, ready to join our civilized American way of life, including what a toilet was for. And once he got the hang of that, how to flush it, then there were clothes to buy, appointments to be made, and who was delegated to that job? Right. Okay, one more part. She's talking about Pablo, of course. Clinging to me as if I were his anchor in an unfathomable sea, Pablo always sat near to me as possible, even in the same chair if he could. The first time he touched my breasts, I thought it was an accident. But when it was repeated again and again, I realized he knew what he was doing. At every opportunity, he would snuggle close and flick my nipples with his finger, grinning at me all the while. Since my Freudian awareness was coming into being, I didn't knock his hand away, thinking it best not to scar him any more than we and life had already done. Instead, I would pretend I wanted something on the other side of the room, or endure it as if it weren't happening. It was a relief when the school term started and I wasn't up to 13-year-old Mexican boys who called me their mother while twiddling with my boobs. I wonder if John, really did him any good. It sounds advantageous when you talk about it. You find a kid at the tender age of 13 scuffling to keep life and limb together, no home to go to. You take him in hand, you feed him, you clothe him, you fix his teeth, give him an education. Sounds really okay. Except everything has been mentioned but love. She goes on, says more racist things about him. And then questions, because in 77 she says he ends up with a Mexican girl, and she takes umbrage with that. And yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Okay, so John Huston, you're both looking with your eyes like, what is happening right now? I took us to a dark place. I admit I took us to a dark place.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Because it ain't here right now.
So here's why I raised...
That was really really disturbing. Like, that's all really disturbing for me.
And saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Like, here's why I raised that, not just to be disturbing. Because I mentioned I read the book. In the book that Thomas Meehan wrote, for literally the entirety of the book is Annie searching for her parents. The entire book. Not just 2 minutes at the opening. The whole book, at the very beginning of the book, she runs away to find her parents. It's very explicit. She puts out signage. She stays in sort of like it was called a Hooverville, like a shanty town in New York City, because it is the Depression and people don't have a lot. But these people that don't, even though they don't have a lot, they take her in when she escapes from the orphanage. They help her find her parents. She does wind up briefly back at the orphanage. Daddy Warbucks is looking for an orphan. That tracks. But, there's a scene in the movie where Daddy Warbucks says to her, I'm going to adopt you. And she starts saying, I want to find my real parents. And in the book, he doesn't tell her he wants to adopt her. Like, he has those plans, but he doesn't tell her that. He simply gives her the locket, at which point she's inconsolable and she tells him, I want to find my parents. And he puts every resource he has behind finding her parents. And it is not until the last pages of the book where the reader learns, and Annie learns that, in fact, the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, who's been looking for her parents, found them, and they passed away of influenza. And they were artists. Her mother got sick with influenza, and her father was so terrified that little Annie was going to get sick also. He brought her to the orphanage temporarily just until her mother got better. And instead, he also got sick and died very quickly. And so that's how she ended up at the orphanage. And her parents always intended to return for her. And J. Edgar Hoover tells her this in a very gentle way. It's her, it's Daddy Warbucks, it's President Roosevelt sitting with Annie, delivering this news and comforting her and reassuring her how much her parents loved her and intended to return for her up until the end. That is the arc. And it is only at that point where Daddy Warbucks says, I would like to adopt you. And she acquiesces at that point. And so my question is, if we have what, honestly, I would recommend to adoptees as an adoptee story, this book, which I did on audio, was narrated by Annie Potts, and it was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so good. It was so good. I would recommend it to any adoptee. How did that story become this movie?
The part that was the second part. So I said there was two parts that hit me that were why did I like this film? And the second one was the moment when Daddy Warbucks buys her the new locket from Tiffany's, and she says, I don't want that locket. My parents are going to come for me and they've got the other half of it. And I have parents. And then he says, well, I'm going to help you look for them. Let's, and that was a very moving moment for me last night when I watched it. I was like, wow, it really hit hard. I think sometimes as adoptees, we're like either just taught or influenced that like we don't have parents, or like it's just glossed over that we have parents, or they're not our real parents, or they're not our parents, or, like all of that kind of garbage. And Annie took a stand and was like, no, I have parents. Like, I actually have parents.
But like in the movie, it's Grace, his assistant, that is trying to convince him to not necessarily adopt Annie, but to make her his ward, which essentially puts him in the position of a legal guardian to her. And it's like, he's like, sure, once he figures out he has a chance with Grace, like it's not, I don't know. That struck me in a place. I'm just like, oh, gross. So first of all, you wanted her for PR. Now the only reason you want to keep her is to make your assistant happy so she'll sleep with you. And it's just ick. Like, if you're a kid watching this story, like, why did I think this was so heartwarming? And, why did I pass over those things? And to know that in the book, it's different. Like, I don't know.
I think for me, why I loved the movie, in addition to the musical numbers and the dancing, which I really did like, it really just Hard Knock Life. I just really loved Hard Knock Life. It's the rags to riches story, right? I mean,
Yes.
who does not want to live a rags to riches story?
Totally. You don't never have to clean again. They're going to clean for you and sing to you while they do it. And here's your fancy closet.
You get a whole circus in the backyard.
And you'll have two parents because Daddy Warbucks is going to marry his assistant, even though there's a power dynamic, and that's inappropriate.
Something else I noticed. So I did watch one other thing. I watched there's a documentary called The Making of Annie, the film. And so I watched it. It was a hard watch. It was, it really felt like propaganda, like filmmaking propaganda, if that makes sense. And the actress, Aileen Quinn, who I think is fantastic. I think she's fantastic in the movie. She's great. She's 10 or 11. She's 10 or 11. She's young. And I mean, just her poise throughout this documentary is fantastic. The adults, so John Huston and Albert Finney, who plays Daddy Warbucks, the way they talk about her professionalism and what a joy she was to work with. Well, on the one hand, I get it. Filmmaking's a business and kids need to be professional in order to be child actors. But I think, knowing what we know today about the industry and how the industry treats some of its youngest stars, how the parents of many young stars treated them. And to be clear, there's no indication in this that Aileen's mother, I think, is in it for a second, but I'm not suggesting anything nefarious there. I'm talking more generally. But I mean, she was really adultified in this documentary in ways that made me very uncomfortable, like through a contemporary lens, made me very, very uncomfortable to watch. And I wondered how much of that also, I don't know, just sort of plays into what we see on film.
Kristal, I'm wondering if you can start a little ticker or something where Sullivan's like, oh, I read this book one. Oh, I also watched this. 2. Oh, I also watched it. 3. Just to keep. I know you list them off at the end, but just I don't know. Just
I'm not going to tell
idea.
you anything anymore.
Like a little ding goes off.
Yeah.
Like or a honk.
It can't be a honk because if her mic is on, we hear horns. Because New York. Do I have thoughts on this? I'm still stuck on all this information that you gave about the director, and you mentioned this documentary. Oh, this feels like film propaganda and stuff. Really, I think that's the whole point of our show, is like unpacking the propaganda that the masses have been consuming about adoption as the glorified industry that it's come to be. So it's interesting you pulling all these threads apart, and it comes just back to that. This is why we're talking about it.
I think what I just heard you say was, thank you for doing all of that background research.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Thank you.
We gave you an honorary doctorate a couple episodes ago. Like, I'm making fun of it, and I'm so appreciative. Like,
yeah.
And you should teach a class. You do teach classes. Anyway. Another very upsetting moment in this film for me was when we see Carol Burnett. I don't know what her name is in the film. Agatha. Miss Hannigan. Miss Hannigan. She knew all along that Annie's parents were dead, and she never bothered to tell her. And this activated me in a big way, because how many of our adoptee friends have had adoptive parents keep things like this information secret from them their whole lives, where we have a right to know this information. And children have the ability to process hard and difficult information when it is given in an age-appropriate fashion. And this, I just wanted to fucking punch Miss Hannigan and just, how dare she keep it a secret? And so in the movie, it's changed to they died in a fire from the story about the influenza that you said in the book.
I think there's so often we hear about adoptees being told that their parents are dead when they're actually alive. And so there was so many things going around in my brain when I was watching this, when they went searching for Annie's parents. And I'm like, is she not even a real orphan? Because I forgot that her parents had actually died in a fire. So I'm like, is she not even a real orphan? I mean, that's a whole thing, right? Like adoptees being told they're orphans and they're not even, and they have parents and who wanted them. And yeah, so that was interesting. I was just traveling in the Dominican, and there's all sorts of beautiful children there. And one of the people I was there with looked at this small toddler Dominican child and said, "Oh, isn't he so cute? I just want to take him home with me." And I said, "But he has a mother," and he was in his mother's arms. And the flippancy in which people say things, and the conditioning around adoption and children, particularly Black children, and bringing them over to America or Canada. And you guys have radicalized me. And now I can't see the world in any other way. So thank you.
You're welcome. Who says that? I've never gone around anywhere and been like, I want to take this child home with me because they're cute. That is so strange.
Yeah.
And normalized. You're totally right. It's totally normalized.
Haley, I'm thinking about what you said, you being upset in the film when they failed to disclose, when Miss Hannigan knows that her parents are dead and failed to disclose that information, which also very activating for me as well to watch that, because she not only apparently has that information that she keeps from Annie, she has like the other half of the locket. Like she has items that should belong to Annie and doesn't give them to her. And I will say in the book, as I mentioned, the book has a different arc to it. Miss Hannigan's brother, Rooster, and his girlfriend do try to take Annie for the reward money. But in the book, they forge a birth certificate and they get a jeweler out in Staten Island to make the other half of a locket. So like they don't have the actual other half of the locket. It's fake. When they come, they're never able to get Annie. There is no like wild chase scene where like Annie is like climbing up a railroad trellis and needs to be rescued from a helicopter in the sky from a racist depiction of a Middle Eastern man. Like none.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Or
that
Indian or East or South Asian, we're not really sure, but racist depiction, which also, by the way, is not in the book. That's another important part. There are 2 racist depictions in the film, staff members. That is not in the book at all. So another interesting choice by the filmmakers to introduce racist characters that don't exist at all in the book. But Rooster is thwarted by J. Edgar Hoover, like without ever contacting Annie. Like they realize that doesn't happen. But when they sit her down and they let her know that her parents have passed away, they have these items. Like they have a box from her parents that presumably then Annie gets this box of stuff from her parents that she can have as keepsakes. And she says, "I knew my parents loved me. I knew deep down they must be dead because they would have come back to me."
When I was in reunion with my birth mother, she told me that she had given a silver spoon and rattle from Burke's to me as a baby. I had never heard about it. I was like, I don't know. I just assumed that perhaps it never made it to my adoptive parents' hands, how these things go. And so when I asked my adoptive mother about it, she was like, "Oh, yeah, I have those for you." And I was in my early 20s at the time. I asked if I could have them, and she said no, she was keeping them safe for me. So that's what that brought up for me. Like, how dare you? Like, we don't even get a connection to them, and to have something physical, like,
it's so wrong. Haley, I'm so sorry. It is so wrong. And you're 23. Like what were you little did your adoptive mother know that you probably would have cared for the rattle more than you cared for anything else in your entire life, because it was your one physical thing that you had that represented your first mother. Like,
or she did know, and that was the problem.
Yeah, that too.
Is there anything else on Annie 1982? And I keep saying 1982 because there's more versions. So we got this won't be the last time that we do Annie.
Oh no.
But Annie 1982.
Annie 1982. Well, this is one of those movies where I was so happy that Annie got adopted and could live happily ever with Daddy Warbucks and his assistant Grace. So yeah, I was kind of happy in the end.
Do you want to give an award?
I will. I will give an award. In a world where mansion tours, radio appearances, and one night out at the movies somehow count as emotional healing, Annie reminds us that adoption narratives have always been excellent PR. I'm pleased to award the Orphan Optics Award to the film Annie. We see Annie turned into both a national morale campaign and PR savant Grace turned into an emotional acquisition specialist, proving that nothing rehabilitates a billionaire's image and love life, quite like adopting a plucky red-headed orphan on camera. Jeff Bezos, please take note. Listeners, viewers, and pop stars, we would love to hear from you. What award would you give Annie or a character in the movie? Leave your comments for us on Instagram or YouTube. Adoption Pop is podcast journalist Haley Radke,
filmmaker Kristal Parke,
and cultural critic Sullivan Summer. In researching this episode, we relied on the book Annie by Thomas Meehan, Kristen Martin, The Sun Won't Come Out Tomorrow, A Dark History of American Orphanhood, John Huston, An Open Book, Evelyn Keyes, Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, My Lively Life in and Out of Hollywood, and Stanley Green, Broadway musicals Show by Show.
If you like what we do, drop us a rating on your podcast app, find and follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and let us know what you want us to cover in future episodes.
Tune in next week for another new episode of Adoption Pop.